My guest today is Kristin Fracchia. She's the head of marketing at Gamma, a super hot AI startup that is valued at $2.1 billion. And if you haven't seen Gamma around, you've probably been living under a rock. So I'm super excited to talk to Kristin because Gamma got my attention with their outstanding marketing. It's crazy good. They are like experts at getting attention. And there are so many things that I want to discuss on this interview. They have viral videos. They done drone shows. They did massive product launches that are seen as takeover of the internet. And I have person in front of me who can help me dig into all that stuff and understand how they did it, why they did it, how did they execute it, and how did they measure success? Because a lot of times we marketers want to know how do you make a case to your boss that you want to do something like that. We're about to dig into all of that. Kristin, welcome to HR's podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Tim.
Yeah, so where I want to start is something that you mentioned when we were kind of preparing for this episode and exchanging notes on what would be great to talk about. And you said that multiple people have been asking you about your playbook for launches because you had some crazy big launches, Gamma 3.0 and Series B, and you had like millions of views on it. So, and you seem to have playbook because you said it wasn't a fluke. It was very intentional. It was prepared. So tell me about your approach to launches with an example of any of them, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing I should start with is we are learning all the time here at Gamma. So the playbook is being written as we go. That's one of the most fun parts about working at an AI startup right now. And I actually think it's a competitive advantage, right? One of the competitive advantages that Gamma has is that we haven't been around that long. And so we don't have all that operational baggage of this is how we do things. These are our playbooks. And so I have actually found at this point in my career, having worked for several different companies, actually how amazing and liberating it is to just be in a situation where constraints beget creativity and you find out you need to do a launch in weeks and you just get your team together in a room and brainstorm. And so we are figuring out our launch strategy and I'm sure it will evolve, but I can talk a little bit about what we did in the fall. So there's a couple things that I learned. First of all, Gamma hadn't done a massive product launch in a couple years. In 2023, just to back up, and for those who aren't familiar with Gamma, Gamma is the anti-PowerPoint. We create AI-powered presentations, any type of content you want to create. Gamma was founded in 2020 with a very small team that was really focused on solving a very palpable pain point, which is no one likes making decks, and most people's decks looked really terrible. So this was a bit pre-generative AI, but developed a really loyal fan base, lots of new types of features. Some of the features that I love the most in Gamma are the pre-AI features. There's nested cards, there's toggles. There's a lot of love that went into the product. And I actually think that's an unfair advantage that we have over products that are just being launched today that feel totally AI first, where the whole thing is you're just like, what problem can I solve with AI, right? So Gamma was founded at that right time, at that crucial point between you weren't too far in advance of a lot of the new generative AI models, but you also weren't after it to where your mind is just clouded by what can we do with AI. And so there is this real strong competitive advantage in that foundation. I just love talking about this that I want to share, in the product that came from working on a problem that was pre-AI and then using AI to leverage it. But when Gamma really entered the public consciousness, I think is 2023. So 2020, 2023, building the product. And then we did our generative AI launch, completely redid the product. I wasn't with the team at the time, so I can't take any credit, but Gamma as a we, launched AI, and that went viral. And so for the company, and the CEOs and the founders, there was this realization that, wow, launches, they do matter, right? It does matter when people are talking about your product, but it wasn't something that we had regularly put into our process. Rather, we were more in the mode of constantly ship, constantly improve, ship weekly, always launching product improvements. And this past fall is the first time since 2023, we actually did what I would consider to be a tier 1 product launch. So a little bit of background to your question there, but I think it's important in that this is not something that we've been doing all the time. And actually we learned a lot this fall. So happy to share the learnings and why I think they're successful. The reason why I think the launch moments are important right now, and we are continuing to plan to organize around a couple launch moments a year or more frequently if they are timed timely is because it is so noisy in AI right now. Every single day, you're getting a model dropping, you're getting some new AI startup. I think there's 15 to 20 AI startups that are found in the world every single day. The idea of just constantly drip releasing marketing for your product launches, it completely gets lost in the noise. So of course we have always on marketing. Of course we're sending newsletter emails to our user base. Of course we're constantly kind of sharing new things that are coming out. But it's really important to find these pivotal moments where you can break through the noise and make people pay attention. And so when we launched Gamma 3.0 in the fall, Gamma 3.0 came out of a bunch of new features that we knew were really cool, that the team had been working on for 6 months, a year, 2 years even, and they were in beta, and we were finally ready to make a lot of noise about them. One of them was our agent AI assistant that could help do whole deck edits. So if you had a deck that you needed to create for a pitch for one company in the morning and another one in the afternoon, you could ask agent to redo all the content. So lots of powerful new features that were coming out, and nobody was going to pay attention if we didn't make a statement around it, right? There's just so much noise. So no matter how cool the features of the launches are, I mean, you probably also see tons of launches, right? How many founders sitting on a couch, launching a product video do you see
That's
in
so
an average
classic,
week?
yeah.
So many, so you have to, if you're going to do it, you really have to do it, and you can't phone it in. And so Gamma 3.0 was a stake in the ground moment where we were saying our product was materially different than it was in its last iteration. And that made people pay attention. One of the metrics that I'm most proud of from that launch is how our weekly active users skyrocketed and then stayed at a higher percentage than they ever had been. And with AI, as the models get better, if you're building on AI, if you're an AI app layer company, your product gets better too. And the worst thing that I hear is, oh, I tried Gamma a year ago and it wasn't very good. And you have no idea how much better it is now. And so if you have AI in your product at all, I think you have to be doing these launch moments because you have to re-engage your user base all the time. Gamma has 70 million users that we've acquired over the past 3 years. Some of them experienced the product early on and haven't come back. It is completely different. It's been completely changed even over the year I've been here. So the product launches, what I see from a marketing perspective, it's a long-winded way of saying it is a reason for you to bring people back to the product, which is so important for AI companies right now. So you need a message, you need a theme, you need to have a moment. So we tend to package. It's not we don't hold back product releases. We think about intentionally what's going to go together and what is the step change that we are creating with that product launch. So the basic playbook looks like we decide on the moment that can seasonally makes sense, or a time that we think will make sense for our audience to make a moment. We pick the theme. This comes from brainstorming. It comes from collaboration with the product team, but also just a lot of deep thinking on the marketing team, talking to users, et cetera. Define the theme, and then you have to your job is to make as much noise as possible, which you can't do with just one channel. So it's a multi-channel. It's an omni-channel coordination. We do a lot of influencer marketing. We have an always-on influencer marketing strategy. We do a lot of employee-generated content that has to be always on as well too. And then we also do a lot of community-led marketing and community engagement as well. Because all of those three things are always on at all times, it gives you the opportunity to dial it up for a launch. And so that's probably the most critical part of the playbook, is not actually the moments before the launch. It's all the prep work that you're constantly doing so that you can dial it up for the launch. So by the time we're doing a launch moment and dialing it up, we have run hundreds and hundreds of influencer experiments. We have our CEO, Grant, who has been posting daily for years to get to the point where we can use his account in order to publicize big news. We have a community of Gambassadors that, we've really put a lot of authentic love into.
Gambassadors?
Yeah, they're called Gambassadors, yeah. And so, when you get to those launch moments, we have a great team and culture. Then the culmination of that, you just dial it up. And that is hard to do because it's not like an easy thing. It's not an easy thing to go viral. You can't just make this up in the moment. So the most important thing is laying on the foundation, figuring out what channels work really well for you, and then how do you dial it up in that particular moment.
So what I'm hearing is that there's a lot of kind of groundwork, as you said, to set the foundation for this. So you have CEO with a large audience. You have messaging prepared and packaged, like what would be the big moment for you, because the message matters. Of course, you cannot say, oh, we've added this button, ta-da, people won't care, of course.
Nobody cares.
You have been building a network of influencers that you can tap into. You are encouraging your team to have kind of personal brands and be active on socials. And then you kind of rally all the troops, all the channels together, coordinate them for one launch. That's basically the playbook.
Correct. And then that's probably not satisfying to a lot of users who are looking for like, what's the special thing you do?
No, I have a bunch of other questions to ask to make it satisfying.
Yeah. Great. Perfect. One thing I will add right now is something that we always do at Gamma is you think about the twist, right? So when you're doing something expected, nobody pays attention. There is a book that I read early last year that inspired me. Let me remember the name. Audacious by Mark Schaefer. And there's a part at the beginning, it's right in the prologue. And basically, what he states is all marketing is about, message, medium, and messenger. And you just change one of those things and you do something unexpected. So I know you mentioned the drone show Gamma did. Honestly, I stole that from this book. One of the examples that he talks about switching up one of those elements was a drone show stunt. We obviously did it in our unique Gamma way. But in that case, the message we were sharing, Gamma as a visual storytelling platform, was the same. The messenger was us, right? We hosted it, but the medium was different, drone show. So anytime we are then trying to find that launch moment, I just think about, that's the simple trick, is I think about switching up one of those things. And we also did, our first celebrity campaign recently. So in that case, we were switching up the messenger, right? Like creating a unique messenger for Gamma to share our message and in a medium that, is pretty frequent for us, video. So it's just changing one of those elements. And then that really, helps kind of ground the brainstorming of your ideas into something that is actually going to have some spark.
I'm a big advocate of Audacious book by Mark Schaefer. We recorded actually an interview with him for HR's podcast. I'm not sure if you've heard it or not. I do recommend you to listen to it because I've read his book and we went deep in some of his concepts. Did you see me burning his book and posting the video on LinkedIn? I actually set his book on fire and posted it on LinkedIn. And this was essentially a promotion because he was a speaker at our Evolve conference last year. And this was, again, I was using concepts from his book, especially specifically the taboo concept, because you don't really burn books and you don't make a video out of it and you don't post it on social media. So Audacious, great book. I love that you've been using concepts from it. And I invite you to listen to my interview with Mark. I think we did a great job digging into a lot of the concepts. But back to your launches. So couple interesting things that I want to specifically dig into. An exclusive in New York Times. So I like to be talking about specifics, and I'm sure that when people see that, Gamma's launch was covered by New York Times, how did you do it? Was this an agency? Was this a contact of yours? Or did you just cold pitch a journalist at New York Times? How did this happen?
Yeah, so we do have an amazing fractional head of communications who works for us, and she had been working for us for a long time before we landed that. So I will say, going back to the prep work, right? There's a lot of hard work that goes into building a startup today that stands out, and a lot of what I think about day to day is how we're laying seeds for things that we want to materialize and manifest in the future. And I think of everything as experiments, right? You're constantly putting experiments out in the world to see what works. A lot of people don't think about brand type of marketing as the experimental channel to use. I spent a lot of time.
Wait. I think you're going a bit astray. Sorry for interruption. The New York Times piece. You said you have a fractional head of communication.
Yeah.
Did she have an existing contact in New York? How do these things happen? How we want to launch something at Ahrefs. How do we get New York Times to cover this?
No, I promise I'm not going astray here. So the experimentation here comes from trying different messaging in advance, right? right? So we were, when I first started at Gamma, we were covered in the New York Times by a reporter, and the hook that was of interest was tiny teams. So there was an article that Gamma was a part of. A New York Times article was looking for our New York Times reporter was looking for how Silicon Valley is building startups differently. And so Gamma had 20 people at the time, maybe almost 30, and $50 million in ARR. And so that was interesting, right? That high ARR multiple per employee at that time. And so that became something that we leaned into as an angle, right? You need some type of differentiator. What makes your company, how you're building a company unique. And so we did test that message, repeatedly in pitches. And I do think with the landing the exclusive for our Series B with the New York Times, that came from being able to put together, one, relationships do matter in PR and media. Like I won't say they don't, right? You have to have connections and reporters. So that's the groundwork that goes into it. Like I wouldn't have been able to pull that off myself. I don't have those types of connections. It's a specialized skill set. So you need to look for the right person that can help make you those connections. And so it's a matter of laying all that groundwork. It's a matter of knowing what your message is that's going to land at that particular time, and have you already done all the work in order to figure out what your unique angle is. And then it's also, a matter of luck, right? Are they covering any other companies? The New York Times only does, to my knowledge, a few of these types of announcements a year. And so, it just may not be the right timing at all. So, I won't discount the fact that I think I'm proud of that placement, but I think we also, we got lucky with it. And again, you have to constantly be taking big swings all of the time. We take a lot of big swings here at Gamma. They don't all hit, but the ones that do hit, right, is what you see in the world.
Yeah, unique angle for sure, right moment for sure, but I think the connection piece is probably more important than any of that, because for Hrefs, we can also find the unique angle. Like we're bootstrapped with a very small team. We grew to over 100 million ARR without salespeople, so we self-serve. I don't see a lot of stories like that. We're like the founding team, like the founder rather, and the executive team is Ukrainians. So none of us are native speakers, and so like there's a lot of twists. But again, we've been in the industry for over 10 years, so I'm sure there were a lot of moments where we could get into big publications. But do we have connections? Do we know the journalists? No. Like, would we be building those connections for all those 10 years and kind of reaching out? You have to have kind of a dedicated person for that. So yeah, what I'm hearing is you have this fractional head of communications, who you mentioned, and she or he has existing connections. And since they're fractional, they're doing this for a bunch of startups, and they're picking, like this startup, this moment, this journalist, I can make something happen, or I can try to make something happen.
Yeah, PR is a specialized skill set. I consider myself to be a generalist marketer. There are some areas that are highly specialized, performance marketing, PR. So I think part of, being a marketing leader and marketing with a small team is like knowing what you can do with generalists and where you absolutely have to bring in specialists. Of course, this, Tim, you should figure out what your competitive advantages are and where you should lean in marketing. We don't do everything. We're not really great at SEO yet. We're doing a bit there, but that's not our main channel. But what we were seeing this year is really standing out with brand and PR and making moments. And so it was important to me that this was an area we were leaning into. I don't know that, not speaking of Gamma, but speaking of past experiences at other companies, I've gotten so excited when I've landed an article in the New York Times or Wall Street Journal. It's just, but it was never, incremental, right? Like you get really excited getting these brand names. But so basically like what I want to say is I want to encourage like, oh my gosh, everybody needs to get, a head of PR now and in the New York Times. It's one of those things that seems cool, but is it right for the marketing strategy that you're trying to really lean into as your competitive edge?
Frankly, I'm being a bit dismissive of our own PR efforts, because we did land a coverage at TechCrunch when we announced that we're building a search engine and we're investing something like $60 million there. Our in-house team, without any prior connection, we were able to get into TechCrunch and do like a full coverage of our plan to build a search engine. So it is possible. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you have like a good angle, if you have good timing, you can even cold outreach journalists, and if your story is compelling enough, they might cover it. So in that regard, you also listed that part of the launch was dedicated to our episode on Lenny's podcast. So in that regard, I don't really have questions, because Lenny, even though he's quite big, the kind of the way to pitch him is rather straightforward. You just drop him a bunch of messages at other channels, and you need to have a compelling story of why your startup matters. Of course, it also helps when you're offering someone like an exclusive thing to cover something before everyone knows about it. But no questions here. I think anyone listening knows how to pitch themselves to podcasts, even if this is one of the biggest podcasts in tech, which is Lenny. So with that, let's switch to influencer marketing, which Gamma is also exceptional at. Literally, my producer Michelle, when she was making notes for this interview, she wrote, "Their influencer marketing is mental." So
it does feel mental at times. Yeah.
Let's dig into that. Before this interview, I was actually listening to your founder's interview on Lenny's podcast, and he covered a little bit of that. So he started doing it himself. He was onboarding influencers himself, getting a buy-in with the product, making sure that they understand it, enjoy it, can speak the right way about it. But what I heard is that later you switched to using agencies to manage your influencer marketing. Or like, did you switch fully, or did you like offload a certain part of influencer marketing? So how does it work?
Yeah, so we work with right now about 6 to 8 different agencies. About
6 to 8 different agencies. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. About 4 or 5 we're working with all the time. And then other ones we pull in around specific moments or launches, again, when we're dialing things up. Honestly, influencer management is a very manual human-to-human task. It doesn't scale well with one person. That's just the nature of it. And it also is actually what makes it a pretty defensible strategy right now, because it's not easy to do, right? It just requires a lot of work in order to pull it off. Obviously, you can get better at scaling it, like Gamma has. We only have, there's only just over 60 people on the whole Gamma team right now. We have 10 people in marketing. Early this year, we had 3 people on marketing. Or earlier, it's in 2025, a year ago, 3 people in marketing, and we were still managing 6 to 8 different influencer agencies and having hundreds of influencers going live each month. So you obviously can get better at scaling anything, but it's not one of those things that's easy to do. So we do work with agencies and partners on that. The other reason to work with multiple agencies is agencies tend to be, in my opinion, the platform specialists, right? There's certainly in most agencies will work across all platforms, but they tend to be better or more connected with the influencers that are on a certain platform. And the influencers, the tech AI influencers on Twitter are very different than your lifestyle influencers on Instagram, right, or TikTok. So that's another reason why we work with several, because we're looking for trying to work with the best connectors and the people who know the specific social platforms the best. We also do work directly with some influencers. I think creator marketing in general is very much on the rise. You're seeing a lot of AI startups get into that. It's a marketplace essentially, where you have companies and you have creators, and the powers with the creators right now. You have so many companies that are trying to get once they see companies. Lovable does a lot of influencer marketing as well too. And you see these startups be successful, and then more creators want to get into the game, and more companies wanted to get into the game, and so the marketplace dynamics get more competitive. And so what I'm seeing in influencer marketing now is also more exclusive contracts, more. We do dinners, with our creators, like I know them personally. So, and more repeat long-term relationships. So, brief answer to your question, we do have certain creators that we bring them to our office. They come to our events. We know them. I know them personally. You're on a text, basis. But then for scale, we do work with a lot of agencies.
Wow. We obviously do quite a bit of influencer marketing ourselves. And I think we kind of kick-started our influencer marketing when I had this idea, let's stop all the kind of paid advertising spend for a month, which at that time, it was like 3 years ago or something, was around $200K per month. and announce on Twitter that we have this like 200K and we want to give it to creators. So tell us, like, if you have an audience, if you have a newsletter, if you have a podcast, we'll sponsor you. You will talk about Ahrefs and not Google, Facebook, or some other advertising platforms that we were using. This kickstarted our influencer marketing motion, but we always kept it in-house. And I do remember that we were obviously pitched by some agencies who noticed that we're working with influencers, and they were like, oh, let's work with us. I don't remember the details, but we never actually worked with any of them. Maybe they had too big of a margin. Maybe we didn't like what they were offering. So now that you're saying that you work with a few different agencies and that they're platform specific, this is one of the biggest insights for me right now in terms of influencer marketing, that agencies are platform specific. Somehow I didn't thought about that. So very cool. But for anyone looking to start an influencer marketing motion at their company, what are some pieces of advice that you can give them? What are some mistakes that you made? What are some things that you learned that you can share? Like, what kind of advice can you give for someone looking to start this?
Yeah, so the hardest thing about influencer marketing for anybody who's used to doing performance marketing or other trackable channels is it's just honestly not that trackable, right? And so what a lot of people want to do is they want to make it analogous to SEO, performance marketing. So they want to include links, track to links, right? I have done some isolated track link campaigns, but they kill reach, And so basically what you're doing is you'll end up with a campaign that because the platforms don't want to link out to you, and you can't even really do that well on Instagram, but on LinkedIn, you put a link in your post, it kills your reach. And so you end up with a campaign where maybe you can track stuff, but you don't get the reach. And so it's a failure. Or you say, okay, let's let the creators lead here and, use their knowledge of their audience and their platform and write their creative. And they'll say, don't include links, right? It'll do this, just trust me. And then you can't track it. And so there is a leap of faith that you have to have with influencer marketing in order to trust, right? To have some level of trust. I'll tell you how we do tracking for influencer marketing here in a minute, because I'm not comfortable with that. This was my next question. I'm not comfortable with just blind faith. But that's a mistake that I think a lot of companies make is, right, you launch and you control the message, you ask for track links, and you're like, well, this is not successful. The second mistake is not investing enough. And this is also the reason why a lot of companies don't invest heavily in the strategies, because it's hard, right? It's hard to say, I'm going to invest what you did with like the 200K a month, right? That's probably like actually an appropriate budget level for running experiment. You have to do it over like 6 months, right? You have to actually truly invest. A lot of the times when I'm talking to companies, because Grant, our CEO, and myself do speak a lot about influencer marketing. So I take a lot of calls and say, we want to do this. And everybody's eyes always like bug out when I say how much you'll have to invest and for how long in order to actually see measurable results. And so most companies make the mistake of not investing enough. That's going to be proportional to the size of your user base and your company, right? If you're a smaller startup, but it's always going to feel like a lot. Like it's always going to feel like too much, right? But if you just, it's like, oh, I'm going to experiment with $5,000 this month. Maybe you'll have some micro mid influencers, $1,000 each, 5 influencers post, like, maybe one of them goes viral and you get excited, but likely none of them are going to hit, or it's just going to get a few views and you're going to say, oh, you're going to give up. You have to do it at scale in order to see if it moves the needle at your top line, because you're just not going to be able to track it to ROI on a granular level the way that you can do with a lot of other channels. Do you want to talk about measurement? Should we talk about how we
of course. What kind of, because you're paying those agencies, so part of working with them should be some kind of reporting. So what do the reports look like? What do they report on?
Yeah. Well, I'll actually tell you about 2 ways that we look at measurement for this high level. So of course, agencies and influencers give reports. What they give you reports on is how many views, how many engagements, right, you got on that piece of content. That's fine. And so what most people do with influencer marketing is they treat it on a CPM, the cost per mil basis, and they just look at like what was the cost for the reach, or they do some type of calculation for qualified impressions, or they base it on engagement. So we do that, and that's a way that actually we measure the performance of our agency partners against each other and track them over time, right? And so we have a spreadsheet, we have a spreadsheet spreadsheet that we have all of our influencers or agencies are managed on. And we look over time, okay, what from the reports we're getting from them, what are we doing on a CPM basis? So that's the more traditional brand advertising way to do this. However, definitely not good enough for me at the level that we're spending here. I mean, it's super uncomfortable not really understanding how that's actually translating into user acquisition and revenue for us. And so we also do something else that makes me slightly uncomfortable, but is way better than nothing, which is we use our How Did You Hear About Us survey as a proxy. And so in our How Did You Hear About Us survey, you can say, I heard about Gamma from Google, and then social channels, right? We have all our social channels on there, TikTok, Instagram, etc. Now we're at an advantage because actually Google, Gamma's organic social following right now, I think is relatively small to our size. And also company accounts are not getting the reach that they did anymore. And so we just use attribution modeling essentially to determine what's influencers and not. So if people are coming in and saying they heard about us from TikTok or LinkedIn, we make an assumption that a certain percentage of that, a very high percentage of that, is coming from influencers. And then we have an attribution model that equates to CAC, which is a much more comfortable number, I think, to be taking a look at. Now, yes, it's directional. Yes, there's some margin of error around that because it's not directly attributable. But I think that gets you much closer to what the reality is actually moving the needle for your business. Right now, Gamma, about 50% of our users are word of mouth. Another 25% comes from influencers. And then the other 25% is a mix of other channels. So it's a massive channel for us.
Wow. Yeah, we do self-attribution as well. When people sign up for Ahrefs, we ask, how did you hear about us? That is very helpful. And this is exactly the proxy that we were using for our influencer marketing. Of course, for small influencers, doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
No one would mention their names at all. But again, someone like Lenny, I'm sure you saw a lot of Lenny name in your self-attribution when you did a podcast with him or maybe when you sponsored him. So yeah, it's very proportional to the size of the influencer. And sometimes it helps you identify when some influencer looks, I don't know, big and respected with a big audience. And then they do a few posts about you and crickets. No one is mentioning them. You're like, okay, maybe, I don't know, maybe bad audience fit, or maybe their audience is not active anymore, or maybe a lot of fake followers. I don't know. But yeah, we definitely use self-attribution as well.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I will say on that, because I don't know if it's just us or other companies, but the previous startup, we had their How Did You Hear About Us survey, and I would look for the write-in section. And you wouldn't expect that everybody would write in the exact name of the podcast they heard you on or the influencer, but you'd look for some of it, right? Like if you don't see anybody mention that name, I would question it. So I expected when I started at Gamma last year that I would see the same. We did some pretty big podcasts with probably some of the biggest podcasts in the world. And I went to my other section and nobody was saying those names. So either I was completely off in these channels like targeting, which I don't think I was, or people are just not, like, we're just not seeing that kind of behavior of the write-in anymore. So unfortunately, like, I'm not able to use that as a proxy. So just to clarify, we're looking at like that overall social channel bucket, right? The big buttons people are clicking about whether you heard about us from TikTok or Instagram. But in case anybody else is using your How Did You Hear About survey, I don't see people writing in a lot of specific names anymore.
You have other section. For us, other section is the only section. So we don't have any drop downs.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, that makes sense.
We only have like a text input field and that's it. So it's a bit challenging on people. And we also, I think we don't allow kind of one word response. Oh no, we do. It's the cancellation survey. When they cancel, I think it's 3 words or 5 words, and they're like sometimes irritated that we make them write something, but they're canceling, so it's not much of a big deal. But yeah, for self-attribution, we have just a text field. There is nothing to choose from. I think it's kind of better. And for anyone listening who's like now rolling their eyes, oh, these guys are using self-attribution. We all know all the kind of pitfalls. We don't know that we all know that it's not precise, but it's very helpful to have it compared to not having it. So if you want to write a rage comment to this episode, please do. That always helps. But yeah, we are like pretty experienced in our field, so we know what we're doing.
I actually love that you have the write-in. I think probably the main reason people didn't do that before was because it would be just so hard to analyze all the qualitative stuff. But I'm sure you have AI tools right now that you can use to
Yeah.
aggregate it. Whereas I definitely worry more about the validity of people just pressing on a button to get out of their, onboarding survey as fast as possible. So, you can do the randomization of the order, right, to validate that. But yeah, it feels with the write-in, I'm sure you get lots of just keyboard smashes as well too. But it probably may be more accurate than ours.
To close off the topic of influencer marketing, I loved your LinkedIn post where you were, I'm quoting, looking for a handful of SF-based LinkedIn and X creators in your network to come to the Gamma office next week for a couple hours of an exclusive access, top secret preview, smiley face, and an opportunity to create some unique content with our CEO. So yeah, like you said, you do keep some of the influencer marketing stuff. And what I like about it is that's basically relationship building. Yeah, like you said, you have dinners, you invite them to your office, you have some of these people on your WhatsApp. I think it matters a lot if you want your influencer marketing motion to be really like high quality and really kind of trustworthy, so to say. So these people are not necessarily in for the money, because an influencer, they have like lots of clients to choose from. But if they want to work with you, you need to give them a reason, like why are you a great partner for them, especially if you want to work with them long term.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Let's go to the topic of viral videos. You did quite a few videos that caught my attention, and I'm very excited to dig into that. First of all, Rainn Wilson, Dwight from The Office. As a big fan of the show, I was like super impressed. I was in awe. I'm super jealous that you did it. I'm super jealous that you had a chance to hang out with the guy. The video is hilarious, especially kind of the final scene of like with his face and him doing like some high impression. This is again, this is just speaks volumes of what it means to work like with a real comedic talent, with a like top 1% comedic talent. This is incredible. But tell me a little bit about the overarching brand marketing ethos, because you had a video with Rainn Wilson. You did Mission Impossible parody where your CEO was running the streets delivering the USB drive. You did a Severance parody. So Severance is a TV series. Their work is important and whatever. So tell me about your ethos. Like, why are you doing these videos? What's the strategy behind this? Because like you don't really talk much about your product there. Like with Rainn Wilson, it was just, I'm the CEO right now. There's not much about Gamma. Mission Impossible, he delivers a USB drive which fixes the presentation, but it's not really like why you should be using the product. Severance parody, it's more product oriented. That was, I think, more product focused. But tell me more about your strategy with these videos.
Yeah, so I mean, there's two things. One, there's so many products being created all the time right now. So you have to give people a reason to care about more than just your AI product. It's not defensible. We have lots of imitators on the market. There's lots of people who create AI presentations. I mean, there's also lots of companies that create presentations, PowerPoint, Google Slides, right? You have incumbents, you have upstarts, and so for us, I look at what is the one thing that feels really unique that we can do really well and make people care. There's many ways to make people care, but I do believe that particularly paradoxically in the AI age right now, people do want a team to root for. They do want to know that you're a company of real human beings with real taste and creativity. And Gamma is a creative product at its heart. We have a vision and a mission to build tools for imagination. So we should live that every day. It should be in our product. The product should make you feel like you're able to do things you've never done before. And so we push ourselves to not be boring and to do things that we haven't done before as well too. But when you're a really small team, you just have to you lean into the strengths, and I think you should, right? What are the 1% strengths you have on your team? And we're lucky enough to have an amazing video producer and a CEO who's willing to do wild stunts and like enjoys it, right? I mean, not everybody has that. So I was like, well,
have you seen
that,
my
so
CEO?
Yes. Not doing Mission Impossible stunts.
No, Dmitry, our CEO and founder, is completely distance himself from any publicity at all.
Yes, everyone, all CEOs have their strengths, right? So, but I will milk, whatever we can for what it's worth. And so, so you start doing it, you see, everything's an experiment at first, right? And then you start to see the attraction, you start to see what's sticking, and, then being able to have people say like, oh my gosh, you're talking about like a B2B prospect. You're like, oh, your Mission Impossible thing was hilarious, right? Oh, the Rainn Wilson stuff was hilarious. There's a brand moment in the moment where you're trying to get millions of views. And then there are, there's real quality CPM, right? These quality things that can actually turn into big moments. This is the stuff that people remember. So that's what I'm most proud of for our drone, we did a drone show as well too. People were there. They will remember that. They will remember that for a very, very long time. It's not going to be like a passing, online advertisement that they saw. And so I see that come around and pay dividends in very high value ways, recruiting, B2B deals, et cetera. And so really the root of it just comes from, we have talented video creatives on our team. Gamma has a brand that is invested in not being boring, and that supports what we're trying to do in our product. And we have a CEO that likes to take big swings. So I will just leverage that, honestly. He's my chief enabling officer. And the idea that I have, Grant takes it, 5 times more extreme.
Okay, let's get into specifics. we just discussed the broad in broad strokes. Specifics. Rainn Wilson.
Yep.
How did you come up with this idea? Where did it come from?
Yeah, well, we started talking about the launch. So originally, we had a couple launches in the spring. In the fall. We had a couple launches in the fall. We had a product launch, and then we announced our Series B. So Series B, typically when companies do fundraising, you don't get a lot of notice as a team. So we had about a very little time to think about what we were going to do around this moment. So got it in a room with a brainstorm, and we thought of our 5 best top ideas from something that we could easily execute, and then something that would just be an absolute reach. And we just tried to do them all. I put feelers out there. So the easiest thing to execute was an employee video that we did, where everybody kind of signed a camera lens, and that was something for our employees to share and celebrate the moment of being part of the series.
I didn't see this one.
Yeah. I mean, it was, didn't have like mass viral potential, but it was something employees wanted to share, right? So we were thinking about kind of covering all our bases. We want something that employees want to share. We want something that the public might share. The reach dream was Rainn Wilson. And Rainn Wilson, was a dream celebrity.
Who came up with the idea? Who offered it? Tell me. Who's responsible?
I can't remember which member of our marketing team, but this is just, when you're putting sticky notes, right, on a fig jam. And
so this Rainn was a result of brainstorm, and someone was like, would it be awesome to like have Rainn Wilson as the face of our video ad?
Correct. And so you may have seen, Ramp, another company, Ramp, had done a stunt with Brian Baumgartner.
Yeah, they did some live day in the office or something. Okay, so that was, I like that it was inspired by this thing. It's not in my notes. I had it in my notes before, so I was going to ask you this, but I completely forgot about this. I like that it was inspired, that you're actually like, copied is a bad word, but you essentially copied their strategy. And I'm right now writing a book about marketing, and I have like a subchapter on copying, because a lot of what I did in marketing for Hrefs, I saw something cool and I copied it. So I like that this idea came from Ramp, but you executed it super well.
Yeah, I think we thought it would be hilarious if we did a sequel, honestly. And we're like, which of those celebrities in that ecosystem would be most appropriate for Gamma? There is some reasons why we chose Rainn Wilson. Rainn Wilson felt really appropriate for our brand. I made a Gamma to pitch him. It was super cute. I just tried to be endearing. We sent it to we got the contact for his agent, and we sent it in. And then from there, we had a bunch of conversations. Honestly, I will tell you, I have never worked with a celebrity campaign before. I mentioned I started in marketing and SEO, performance, core digital marketing. I was not a brand marketer. No one's more shocked than me that I'm spending most of my time doing brand and partnerships and celebrity stunts now. It's super fun.
Must be fun.
I'm not mad about it. But I really was like all about trackable like impact metrics, and so this is pushing me outside our comfort zone. I've never worked with a celebrity before, but this is one of those things. You know what? ChatGPT, Claude, amazing. When you work with a celebrity that is of that caliber, you have to go through the Screen Actors Guild, SAG. There's rules, there's specific rituals and specific types of memos you create and contracts that you create. And I had never done any of this before. And what I would have done in a past life is I would have hired somebody who was a specialist, right, in Hollywood celebrities to help walk me through this. I spent a couple hours with ChatGPT, doing research, like having ChatGPT do research on the Screen Actors Guild and come up with like a deal memo. And of course, like I'm using my own intelligence to like check things and fix it and write it in good format. But that allowed me to have the conversations with his agent and manager and like, I guess good enough. I'm sure they probably saw through me. I mean, they know I'm just a tech startup marketer. They wanted to make sure I was for real and understood what it looks like to work with a Hollywood celebrity. So I'm not saying I like pulled one over on them with my ChatGPT deal memo, but it was so incredibly helpful. So that was one of those moments, honestly, that I felt like really enabled as, a generalist marketer, right? Where it's just like, wow, like I was able to do something, probably not 100% as a specialist, but 80% good enough to get the conversations going and to be able to, book a celebrity video and be able to pull that off.
Wow. So you signed a deal with him directly. You didn't go through like an agency.
No.
But the video was probably done by the agency. So you got the actor, you got the agency, and okay.
Yeah.
I cannot not ask.
Yes.
Video production. I cannot not ask. At least 6 figures, 7 figures. What are we talking for an actor of this caliber?
I cannot disclose specific numbers, but less than you think, That's why it's always worth exploring options.
So not even as teenagers would say 6, 7. You wouldn't even like tell me which one.
Not 7. I mean, it totally depends.
Not 7.
It totally depends on who they are and how much time you're asking for them and what you're asking to do. Right? There's all these fees that get added on. So if you're asking for a limited period of time, shoot, like we booked him for an hour and just knocked it out. It's different.
Not 7 is already some useful information for anyone listening. That's already like they can see if they want to reach out and see for themselves, because you can't get this number yourself if you reach out, is that you don't specifically want to share kind of how it worked for you. And I totally understand this.
Yeah.
Let's talk about one other thing in terms of these kinds of videos. So Rainn Wilson, this is kind of virality in itself. I showed this video to quite a few people because it's so... you want to share it. Again, back to Mark Schaefer's Audacious book. It evokes the feeling of awe, and it's like a shareable feeling. You want to show it to other people. But Severance parody, for example, I saw it was posted by your brand account. It got just less than 200 likes, so not much. Which is why I want to talk a little bit about the distribution strategy for these videos, because the one with Mission Impossible, I also think it wasn't like super inherently viral, because there's your CEO there, but it's not that he's a big celebrity for people to care. Your audience, your community cares. They like have they are entertained, but it's not a viral moment that would capture the attention of other people. So what are your thoughts about, you invested in creating this asset. How are you going to distribute it, and how much budget are you willing to put behind it?
Yeah, well, we learned a lot in distribution throughout this year. So first of all, Gamma did not have a marketing team before the beginning of 2025. So Gamma's marketing, of course, there was marketing activities that happened. I mentioned, you mentioned before that Grant, our CEO, was booking influencers himself, but we were at so early stage, our CEO was running marketing, and we had a few folks in-house who were doing also marketing activities, but the marketing team was founded when I joined at the beginning of 2025. So the videos that you're referring to, those are things that we all all rolled out during 2025. Severance was the first one, then Mission Impossible, and then we did our drone show, and then we did Advertise on the Sphere, and then we did our Rainn Wilson stunt. So that was like that was the evolution of 2025 and what we learned along the way. And you're right that we learned a lot about distribution. It's not. You have to put work like into virality. Like very few things, like you can go viral by a scandal, right? Or like you might hit something, that really triggers an organic viral pattern. But most virality out there is orchestrated. It's not by mistake, and so you have to put effort into your distribution strategy. We didn't have enough when we did those videos at first. Of course, yeah, you're right. Our community cared, but we didn't have enough followers on our brand account, and also brand accounts were already getting kind of like hit by the LinkedIn algorithm to just get this organic distribution that we may have liked. So what we took from that, what we learned throughout the year, is we really did need to make two changes. One, we pivoted to using our CEO's account as our primary account. Now, when we launch things and make announcements, it comes from his account and we repost from our brand account. We don't start with our brand account ever now because people get more reach. So that is now our key account. And then the second thing, again, is really figuring out how we leverage our influencer network and our employees to share around content. So we have more strategies to activate employees to be sharing and more strategies to be activating influencers that we have in our network. We let them know when we're about to release a video or a stunt, and in the ideal case, you're getting them involved, right? You're getting them at the event, engaged to share it themselves. So I've been inspired by a lot of companies that have been doing this year. They bring creators in to just cover their events. I mentioned Ramp before. They did that super well with their stunt. They had them there, so it's just getting covered in all sorts of different ways from different accounts. And so on social, it's real people accounts that are getting distribution now. And so we improved a lot along the way. I can't remember offhand exactly like the total reach of the Severance parody, but you're right, it was probably around that. And we're still waiting on a final campaign report from the Rainn Wilson video that we just released a week ago. It was last week as of the recording of this podcast. But I know we're already at 8-9 million in views, and for our launches we did this fall, we were hitting many tens of millions of views. So a lot of learnings and progress that happened over the course of the year.
Wow. Quick question about operations. Severance, Mission Impossible, Rainn Wilson. There was also like a unicorn prank video, which I enjoyed, where like most of your team members were wearing unicorn costumes and you wanted to prank your CEO upon reaching the unicorn status.
Yeah.
In terms of video production, is this the same agency you worked with on all of these videos? Or do you have a bunch of agencies that, again, specialize in something?
Yeah, we have in-house video folks. So we have in-house, I have somebody on the marketing team who does a lot of short form and somebody who does, longer form videos. He comes from the agency side. So things like the unicorn video, you're seeing that being filmed by folks in-house. And then when you're doing things like you want to film something commercial, obviously we're bringing in like full production companies and agencies. The only way that we are able to punch above our weight as a very small team is to have like a really strong team of generalists who are willing to do whatever in-house and can do a lot of different things. And then you have to have your system, you're building constantly your ecosystem of agencies and contractors around you that you can like pull in for specific jobs. Yeah. And so I try to do, and the folks on our team who work with a lot of our production companies, we're doing relationship building all the time, so you have that, you're building that roster so that, when you have an event or, something a video you're trying to push out, you know who to pull on.
So when you were saying that you have 3 people in the marketing department and 10 people, you count those video producers and editors as marketers?
Correct. Yeah. So we have 10 people right now on our marketing team. We have a couple folks in house, and they do video, but they also do other things here.
Another specific question again about video. I saw that an announcement announcing Gamma for Teams and Gamma for Business. And there was Diana, if I pronounce her name correctly, head of core product. And what I noticed that this video was done quite professionally. She was shot from like 3 different angles, 3 different cameras. It was well produced. So was this done in-house, or again, this was done by the agency?
We did that with an agency, yep, but directed in-house with our in-house video creative.
Can you share what is the cost of this kind of video to produce? So if you want to make like just a pretty standard announcement of a product where like some of the product managers is sitting on a chair and like just sharing,
Yeah.
and it's professionally shot, what kind of ballpark we're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, we have great camera equipment in-house, and then there's great editing tools that are very cheap, nowadays. So I think, you can
But to
achieve.
bring in an
Yeah,
agency to
yeah.
do it for
No, I'm just
you,
saying, like, if you're
hands-off.
arranged, like some of the videos I see out there, it's probably just very simply shot. They just have really, really nice equipment and nice lighting. And so we have that in-house here when we want to create something nice. I think it's going to, it completely varies. You're probably talking, if you want to do, I'll call it like the typical like 2 minute founder CEO announcing some type of product launch or like fundraising like type of shot, just one shot, in a nice location. You're renting like an Airbnb or a set. You're bringing in some like local production crew for a few hours to film it. It's probably going to cost you in the US, I should say, 10,000 to 25,000 US dollars. But then I see some incredibly high end ones. If you want a full set and a full production staff and all of that, like there's tech companies that are spending $500,000 on their launch videos right now. So it's a complete range. I mean, again, if you want to be scrappy and you're budget conscious, there's so many good individual contractors out there. We have people, they're just individuals. They're 20-year-olds who are like really good with the camera equipment. And so you can do it in a scrappy way, but you have to like test people out. You have to have the network and who knows who. So that broad range like doesn't necessarily equate to the value of the production. I've spent $50,000 on a shoot that I was like, it looks not. I could have done better with my iPhone. So like, you just really have to know who you're working with.
Yeah. This fear. This is actually something I reached out to you with on LinkedIn because I was super interested to know why did you do it, how did you do it, because everyone sees this sphere as super expensive. And what you mentioned to me in DMs is that it's not as expensive as a lot of people would think. And I think somewhere in the comments, Michelle, my producer, was able to find that it was your ad was shown just 3 times per hour, Monday to Thursday. So not on weekends and not as much as people might think. So yeah, you also told me, I looked up the prices online and thought it's absolutely insane. Side note, we didn't pay these prices at all for this, but got creative, which is why it's important to always take this call. So tell me a little bit about the whole sphere thing. How did you approach it? Because it's a very expensive medium, but you were able to kind of milk it to make it work for you. So tell me a little bit about this campaign.
I learned a really important lesson there. I think I mentioned our marketing brainstorms we run all the time here. Advertising in the sphere comes up in every single one of them. Someone always says, let's advertise in the sphere. Let's advertise in the sphere. And so when we got to our Series B launch, of course, someone said, let's advertise on the sphere. And I said, how much does it cost? And we got the package. And I was like, absolutely not. No way. That is insane. I can't justify that.
So this was 7.
That was, I don't know
6.
publicly, but somewhere in the 650, like 750 range is if you just get the public book, or ask ChatGPT is what you'll end up coming with. I mean, that's for a much more robust package where they do production for you and you're really doing a full kind of custom takeover. That I did not realize. And so I said, absolutely not, no way. And then our CEO said, well, let's just book the call. Let's just talk to them. And so then talking to them, I learned a couple of things. I learned that there's a conference package. And and the conference package looks different, right? You're rotating. There's a particular template, so it like brings down their production costs. So the charges come down there. You're not getting quite as much visibility as you would in peak hours, but obviously we do our due diligence and we think about what are the impressions we're going to get, and then you also think about the digital impressions and the quality impressions, right? So it's not just about who's actually seeing it in person. But there was 2 things that were happening at the time we did the sphere. One, there was an enterprise conference for IT decision makers. advertisers. And since those are actually kind of key stakeholders for if you're bringing an AI tool into your business, okay, there's some value there. And then the second thing is our team was going there for our holiday party. So, we work really hard around here. You have to work really hard as a startup today. So, I think that there's there's value in actually just, the team getting to experience something special together. So extra value there. But then the third thing, this is what I love to do. I love to exploit the gap between what people expect you to do and what you actually do. So people love to talk about that. People love to say, what is this tiny team, doing, blowing all their money on the Sphere? Do you have any idea how much that costs? When we post online, everyone's like, how much does that cost? You reached out to me. It's the only reason I'm on your podcast, because we advertise.
Not the only one. We noticed you before, and Michelle was pitching you before that. It's just we have like a roster of people who we want to talk to. No. And I would say that the Sphere sped up like you on the list. So that's definitely, yeah.
Yeah, no, but people love to talk about that. So, right, like going back to some of the things we were talking about before, you change up something, right? People love to talk about it. Exploiting the gap between what people expect you to do and what you actually do, that gets people to talk about you. So, people love to talk about like the drone show and the Sphere, and a big reason is because people are wondering why this new startup is doing things like that. And so, I knew that people were going to talk about how much it costs to advertise on the Sphere, and that's just part of the conversation and reach.
Again, to get specific, I'm not as much interested to know about kind of buying the advertisement on the Sphere, because again, anyone can call them, anyone can request a quote. As much as I'm interested how to properly milk it and how much control do they have over this. For example, simple example, can I take my drone and just fly it around the Sphere while no, you're saying no. Yeah. So tell me how it works. So I saw in your video, I think it was shot from like one angle, maybe from some hotel room window or whatnot. And for example, when I saw Timothée Chalamet advertising his Marty Supreme movie, he was freaking standing on top of the Sphere, and there was like a drone shot coming. Yeah, so I imagine there are like at least a few ways to create video assets around the Sphere, and it seems that they are in full control of what you can and cannot do with this medium, right?
Yep.
Okay, so what you only had one video from one angle? That was it?
When you are going for prime real estate or like, top tier brand partnerships, I've heard this from individuals I work with, things like Formula One right now, which is a really kind of hot place to advertise right now. There's very specific rules around what you can and you can't post and what video coverage you can use. And so those are constraints in which you need to get pretty creative. So with advertising in the Sphere, there's certain things you're allowed to say and not, and certain official coverage that you're allowed to use and not. And so for us, on the one hand, I learned a lot of lessons along the way, right? Like I think my vision for how far we could take that was grander than the circumstances actually allowed. But you also have to keep in mind that attention spans on social are short. And so if you're working in a situation where they say, oh, you can post for 2 weeks, right? That's actually fine. If you're working with a celebrity influencer, oftentimes you do have, or a major influencer, there is a limited period of time which you can show that video. And you could say, oh, well, that's really painful not to have that live on the internet for years and years and years. But also really is that impression 2 years from now as worth it to you as the impression, right now in the moment when everybody's paying attention and sharing and caring it? Probably not. So, I think you just have to, you have to be, you have to really think about the value you're getting, but also, not necessarily be put off by things that seem like they would in other circumstances, be a hindrance on it. So, we just made the most of it, in the time that, within the constraints we were allowed to advertise under.
We need to accelerate our conversation because there's so much I want to ask.
Sorry,
so
I'm long-winded.
Let's get, if you have time, we can go a little more. But again, I don't want to make this interview too long. Drone show. Again, we already discussed the ethos, the thinking behind it, the strategy. But I'm interested in specifics because you said you had 4,000 attendees. And there are like building blocks of it. So there's the drone show itself. So you need to like hire a company who would create, develop, and run it. Then you again had the videos. So you had the video from different angles. You had drone flying around. Question is it the same company or did you need to hire another company? Then I think you had the mayor of San Francisco attending. So was this part of like, I don't know, hiring a PR firm? So what were the building blocks of this campaign? I'm trying to understand how does one go about organizing something like this? Because surely it's not just calling some drone company and say, we want a drone show and everything is done for you like DIY. Or
I mean, you'd be surprised. Yeah, you'd be surprised. I mean, we tend to do things pretty fast around here. From idea to the drone show was 5 weeks. I actually tried to do it in 3 weeks. We ended up with 5. So there are companies that do everything now. I constantly try to have a bunch of ideas in my back pocket. So I do intro calls. I have several other ideas I'd like to pull off, and I have those exploratory conversations so that I can figure out, is this actually feasible and what will it actually take to accomplish? So the drone show was one of those things where I had the idea, like, might as well make the call, like find out what it would take, like, what would it look like? That actually, again, going back to exploiting the gap between like expectations and reality. Honestly, the drone show was very little in-house time required for what you would expect for something of that scale. The company that we worked with, Sky Elements, they're the biggest drone show company in the nation. They run drone shows multiple, I don't know if it's multiple days, definitely at least multiple a week, right? Like they have this down to an art, and they have partners that they work with for the permitting and the security, et cetera. So, we're in San Francisco. It's obviously a pretty, there's a lot of vendors you could potentially work with on all sorts of campaigns. So there's companies that do everything. So in that case, it's, we had weekly meetings with them. We did creative brainstorming. We worked through several iterations, right? From like concept to full renderings. Our team did need to participate in, what type of creative assets we wanted to create. But for me as a small team, like I really trusted that we could do the creativity and we could do the distribution of the event. I just needed a partner that could have security and permits and logistics and those types of things that I know, like, I couldn't do, our team couldn't do.
Yeah.
So in that case, I was like, okay, great. This is a great company that can take care of that. And then we'll work on just the marketing promotion for it. So tying things to existing events is always super smart. When I was thinking about how can we get attendees for our drone show, it's you want to get on some type of calendar, so we don't have to drum all of that interest up ourselves. So we did it during SF Tech Week. So we were on a Tech Week, calendar. And then because it was an interesting event, we were promoted more. We of course like promoted on TikTok and, through our other channels as well too, and had, an invite list. And we also, we kept trying to, build it up in advance to make this as special as possible. And so we had people submit ideas and then we put their ideas. We had people vote and their favorite images like went up on it. So there's a reason to, there's reasons to be there and reasons for people to want to attend. But the major thing was the learning for me there was tying it to an existing event where people are already going to be searching for things to do. I think that's how we got a lot of the in-person attendees. Of course, 4,000 in-person attendees like probably doesn't pay off ROI for a drone show. It's not cheap to execute on. So we're looking for the digital reach there as well too, people sharing online. And so very enjoyable to see the Reddit comments of people saying what is happening right now in San Francisco. Posting videos. There was a lot of organic social posts, and the mayor of San Francisco does tend to go around to a lot of events. So we just reached out. We manage a lot in-house, right? And honestly, I'm irrationally confident in my own ability to try to get stuff done. Just ask. It's worth asking, if you want something, if it makes sense for you. So, a lot of that, it's that difference between like, it looks like something that's like really hard to do. It's actually not. I look for those opportunities all the time.
Two things here. First of all, I absolutely love how you involved community and made them submit their ideas of what should be part of the drone show. We did a similar things many years ago when we wanted to print coffee cups at a conference. And back then we had a very active Facebook group, Facebook community, and I asked people, What do we print on these coffee cups? So there were a lot of ideas, and then we went for the nutritional facts table, but it was all like SEO metrics.
Yeah,
So people love this
that's
idea.
super fun.
And the second thing, I'm sure like throughout this interview, as people hearing about all those different stunts you did, it all sounds pretty expensive. And I once did a post on LinkedIn where I said, your brand is your marketing budget, fight me. And I still do believe this is true. Yeah, we all can say creativity, message, blah, blah, blah. But come on, you can have all the creativity and all the message you want, but if there's no marketing budget behind this, you won't get the visibility you need. So the way I see this is, if you want to invest this much in your brand, if you want to have like crazy famous actors, drone shows, this sphere, pumping millions in influencer marketing, you have to be super confident in your product. Because if then people go to check you out and the product sucks, all this money went down the drain. So it only works if your product backs up all those. I call this peacocking, because you're just being a peacock. You're investing an incredible amount of money to show off. Look at me. I'm confident that like I can spend this money on this sphere, I can spend this money on drone show, and I'm confident that if you try your product, you're going to like it and you're going to spend, become a paying customer. So this is how I see this. Do you share this opinion?
Completely share that opinion. I know there's a saying I've seen where you have bad product, good marketing is an expensive failure, and good product, bad marketing is an inexpensive failure, and good product and good marketing is exponential. The only reason I take these big swings and spend, the money we get is because it's the product. It's a great product that I believe in. So I have been at other companies where I have seen what marketing can't solve for you, right? It's not a Band-Aid. It does enhance, right? The core product. And so, I would always say for anybody, you got to fix the product before you start layering on marketing dollars.
Two quick questions before we have the rapid fire round. First one, we saw a mention that at your Dreamforce booth you had tarot card readings. But we didn't find any more mentions or videos. What was it about? Like, what was the catch?
I can send you some tarot cards. We have a very creative team. Someone in our team made a fully designed, branded, tarot cards. There's a few people here who love tarot cards, so it's just kind of in the company lore. So we printed the branded decks, and then you have to have the product tie-in, right? And so with Dreamforce, Dreamforce is a super large, noisy conference. It was our first time exhibiting there. They do these things called mobile magic moments where you can drive traffic to your booth, but you have to have a unique idea. And so we're like, well, that'll be interesting and different. So we will do the tarot cards. Hopefully we win the Mobile Magic Award, which we did. And so then, you got kind of that push notification to all the attendees at Dreamforce that Gamma's doing tarot card readings. Of course, you got to demonstrate and demo the product as well, too. So the tarot card readings were actually done in Gamma. So your fortune telling reading was created by AI on the spot in Gamma, and we printed it out. But we also had physical tarot card decks that we were handing out as well.
So the physical tarot cards were designed in Gamma. So they were not actual tarot cards, but your design is unique.
There's two parts of that. So we have the tarot cards. They're on our branding. They're actually real tarot cards. You can use it as. I don't know a lot about tarot personally, but if you know tarot, there's the different. There's the different characters and cards. So it's a branded deck. So it's just on Gamma brand. But then we did fortune telling readings that we printed out on Gamma, and so you can use Gamma for all sorts of things. Very serious things like a pitch deck for your startup or a website for your business or your quarterly
Did you need
annual
to hire
review,
some
or you could just
tarot expert?
I don't know if all of these are authorized tarot expert cards. But
who was doing the reading, or was it all just
AI was Gamma was.
Okay.
You were just getting a fun. You were getting a fun AI reading, getting a deck of your fortune told to you.
Okay, and the final one before rapid fire, you posted a cryptic message on LinkedIn with a screenshot of your CEO's Slack message where he killed some cool marketing campaign, and it was all kind of crossed out. So can you share what was the marketing campaign that he killed?
No, because we still haven't done it, and I still hope to do it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Rapid fire.
I'll let you know.
Rapid fire. Favorite book about marketing or business, I guess, except for Audacious.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's the most recent one, Audacious. Classics. I go back to obviously Awesome by April Dunbar all the time when we're thinking about product positioning for all of our launches.
Okay, great. What tech company has cool marketing except for Gamma, of course?
Clay does, Ramp does. Yeah, those are two companies that I look at all the time.
Awesome. And thank you.
I didn't get a chance to tell you this is a dream of mine to meet you. I in SEO back in the day. I mean, and still obviously, but I went to Ahrefs to learn about everything digital marketing because what you all do super well is that long form educational content. And so when I was doing SEO, I mean, that was just peak was what Ahrefs.
We should have started with that. We will cut it.
No one's still listening to this episode now.
Exactly.
You can do it in the teaser at the top.
Thank you. I'm honored that you're a follower and a customer. Which brings me to the last rapid fire question: a cool person that you follow and you learn from.
Like follow online.
Just generally, I don't know. Watch interviews, follow on LinkedIn. Just any cool person that you learn from.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Lenny Rachitsky. Honestly, he's probably the person I follow the most. Oh, I also really like Claire Vo. Claire Vo is amazing right now at being a straight shooter about AI and not just like leaning into AI hype. I mean, she actually tells you how to use it practically and is not afraid to criticize some of the latest models that come out. So I just feel like I get really good real talk from Claire Vo.
I'm not sure I would be able to spell the name. Is she a consultant? Is she working at some company? How do people find her?
Yeah, Claire Vo, Claire VO. So she does have it's a product chat PRD that she has, and I'm not exactly sure exactly what else she does right now, but talks a lot on Twitter.
Kristin, thanks a lot for this interview. It has been awesome. You were answering all my very specific questions. I learned a ton. I hope listeners learned too. This has been a blast. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.